Here's what to know coming up in the forecast. We do have the chance to see some rain later into the weekend. Will it be enough to help with these drought conditions though? And we could be dealing with some extreme heat as we go into next week. More details on all that coming up.
The National Suicide Lifeline launched 988 today. Coming up here, why doctors in Arkansas say this could make things easier for people experiencing a mental health crisis.
Rising costs on food and everyday necessities could mean rising stress for consumers. More on how to deal with economic anxiety coming up. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight at 6 on THV 11. I'm Sarah Bakowitz and I'm here with meteorologist Corrales Ortiz. Corrales, I'm running out of words to describe just how hot it is outside.
Sultry, steamy, sticky.
I can't even tell the difference anymore. When I get in my car, it used to be like, this is much hotter than outside, but now it's just I'm hot all over. So.
Exactly, and that's just been the trend. I'll even explain in the full look at your forecast in a few minutes how often we've just been hot for the last several weeks. But yeah, today was no exception on top of that, but nonetheless, still not a bad weekend. It's just, you know, it can be a little bit difficult to go outside and enjoy sometimes. So let's take a look at what we're dealing with though right now. It's still pretty warm this evening. We're still sitting in the upper 90s and you know, that humidity makes it feel much hotter. We did have heat advisories, which should still be in place for at least another hour or so. As we go into the overnight hours, we'll be dropping into the upper 70s and it's going to be pretty warm for these next several nights as we have some warmer days in store. Cloud cover will gradually be increasing ahead of an increase in some rain chances this weekend. I'll get to that in just a bit. But as I mentioned, we have some pretty hot days in store. Last time we saw 105-degree highs was about 6 years ago, and we could make a run for that next week. And I'll have more details on that and a full look at your forecast coming up in minutes.
Today, the National Suicide Lifeline launched their new easy-to-remember phone number for people experiencing a mental health crisis. Dialing 988, just those 3 digits, could get help for someone who needs and fast. THV 11's Frederick Price shows us how that'll work here in Arkansas.
Easier access to help in the middle of a mental health crisis could make all the difference.
This is going to be a game changer for mental health.
Dr. Buster Lackey is the executive director of the National Alliance of Mental Illness in Arkansas.
1 in 5 people have some type of mental health issue.
Jacob Smith with the Arkansas Department of Health says the previous 10-digit suicide lifeline was simply too time-consuming for some people. That's why back in 2020, the FCC approved 988.
So this is just a little bit easier way of remembering the number.
But with just 3 call centers in Arkansas, there are some concerns with the potential increase in callers.
From May of 2021 through June of 2022, there were 14,000 callers.
Smith says they were only able to answer a little more than 10,000 of those calls.
We think that we'll see a slight uptick in numbers or callers that call into our call center.
But even if they are overwhelmed, the department says they have additional staff trained to make calls. Dr. Howard Turney is a professor at UA Little Rock. He tells THV 11 this latest advancement shows that people are no longer putting mental health on the back burner.
It also raises awareness that this is a problem in our society that touches many more lives than maybe some realize.
And 988 will hopefully ease the challenge of talking with someone who could potentially help save a life.
For people to access that, you know, string to hang on to until they can get the help they need is a great stride for our country.
In Little Rock, Frederick Price, THV 11 News.
The Biden administration has also invested over $400 million into strengthening and expanding the call center infrastructure. That includes funding directly to states, but states are also allowed to impose their own fees to cover those remaining costs. At the nation's capital, House Democrats have pushed through 2 bills responding to the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. If approved by Congress, the bills would restore abortion rights nationwide and prohibit punishment of women or children who travel to get an abortion. But it's very unlikely that the legislation will pass through the evenly divided Senate. All 4 Republican representatives for Arkansas in the House already voted against the policies, a vote Democrats are keeping a close eye on ahead of midterm elections later this year. Meanwhile, in the wake of Roe versus Wade being overturned, a viral claim says that states banning abortion don't offer paid family leave. The Verify team Ariane Detil looks into the state laws to show us if that's true.
After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which federally granted the right to an abortion, some people have discussed effects the decision could have on workers. Verify viewer Katie shared this viral meme with us and asked if it's true. So let's verify. Our sources are the U.S. Department of Labor and labor and employment departments in states restricting or banning abortion access. Let's start with the states listed on the left. This section of the Venn diagram is supposed to show all of the states that ban or restrict abortion or are likely to do so. Now, it's mostly correct, except that 4 states need some context. In Montana, abortion is currently protected by law, but there are efforts underway to ban access. Iowa and Nebraska have restrictions on abortion at 20 and 22 weeks, which is before a fetus is considered viable. And while Michigan has an existing law banning abortion, it isn't currently being enforced. Now, before we get to the right side, here's some background about family leave in the U.S. Through the Family and Medical Leave Act, the federal government grants everyone 12 weeks of leave, but it's not paid leave. States, however, can offer paid family leave programs to working residents, and some do. So let's go back to that diagram. The right side is supposed to show states that offer paid family leave. Of the 11 states listed and the District of Columbia, 8 have paid leave programs that are currently in effect. The other 4 programs have been passed into law, but they have not yet gone into effect. These programs will pay a person anywhere from 60 to 90% of their average weekly wage for up to 12 weeks. And finally, the middle section, the claim that in states where abortion is banned or likely to be banned, paid family leave is not available for all employees. That is true. Verify confirmed there aren't any states that banned or restricted abortion that also offer paid leave for all people who work in the state. 6 of the states with abortion bans or restrictions shown on that meme, they do offer some paid family leave, but it's only for people who work for the state government. So we can verify it's true that states with restrictions or bans on abortion, or those that are expected to enact them, don't guarantee paid leave for all residents. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Detil.
And ahead of the next legislative session, Arkansas State Representative Aaron Pilkington is proposing a new bill regarding maternity leave. The bill would require certain employers to provide paid maternity leave, saying that any employer that covers abortions or travel expenses related to abortions for employees shall provide 16 weeks of paid maternity leave to employees that live in Arkansas as well. In a tweet, Representative Pilkington says, quote, any company that pays for an employee to get an abortion out of state must also pay for paid maternity leave. If these companies claim to offer women choices, they should actually offer those choices, end quote. State lawmakers will meet next in a special session in just a few weeks. President Biden is on his way back to Washington right now, wrapping up a 4-day trip to the Middle East. Michael George has the latest from New York.
Let me state clearly that the United States is going to remain an active, engaged partner in the Middle East.
President Biden used the final moments on his visit to the Middle East to reassure Gulf state leaders that the U.S. vows to remain an active partner in the region.
We will not walk away and leave a vacuum to be filled by China, Russia, or Iran.
He also held separate meetings with the leaders of several countries, including Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Iraq, to discuss climate change, oil production, and human rights.
The United States will always promote human rights and the values enshrined in the UN Charter. It's in our DNA.
But Saudi Arabia's Minister of Foreign Affairs said the U.S. may regret imposing values outside its own borders.
The idea that one can impose values on other countries, His Royal Highness made clear, does not work. It has not worked when the U.S. tried to impose values on Afghanistan and Iraq. In fact, it backfired.
On Friday, the president greeted Saudi Arabia's crown prince with a controversial fist bump. But President Biden insisted he pressed Mohammed bin Salman on the brutal assassination of Washington Post columnist and critic of the royal family, Jamal Khashoggi.
He basically said that he was not personally responsible for it. I indicated I thought he was.
There was instant criticism. Khashoggi's fiancée tweeted, "The blood of MBS' next victim is on your hands." The Biden administration was also hoping to broker a boost in oil production on this visit so Americans can get some relief at the gas pump, but there were no major announcements. Michael George, CBS News.
OPEC is expected to discuss the issue of increasing oil production at its meeting next month. The president's trip also included stops in Israel and the West Bank. Just ahead, some tips on how to deal with economic stress. That's when the news at 6 returns.
At a live look across the metro this evening, we were seeing another hot day in store. Are we going to be seeing any relief anytime soon? And are we going to be seeing rain? Because we definitely need that. We'll have the details in the forecast coming up.